Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a little bit of time since I recorded my last video. I had gone on hiatus this fall to get over, my husband and I both had COVID and we had a tragic event happen in our family. So I went on a little bit of a hiatus. I said, okay, I'll come back in the new year refreshed, and I ended up viciously sick the first week of January, and I'm only this weekend starting to feel a little bit better. And I had planned on filming a reading vlog for the scary sleepover weekend, but unfortunately with being sick it just didn't happen. And I was gonna push through and say, you know, I'll film the vlog, whatever, it's the weekend. And then I said, you know what, I'm just gonna read the books, watch the movies, do a wrap up, and then hopefully Alex will do the scary sleepover weekend again and I can do a full vlog for you guys. So if you guys don't know the prompts, I didn't do a TBR for this because I really just wanted to mood read. And so a couple of the prompts for the books, obviously we're in the middle of winter, it had to do with winter type themes. So there were specific books that I read over the weekend, and there were some books that I had started actually earlier in the week, but because all I did last weekend was read, I did finish those. So I'm gonna loop those into this wrap up as well, because I feel like I haven't given you guys a reading update in a really long time. So the two book prompts for this was to read a book with a blue cover or blue on the cover, and so it kind of loops in with like Blue Monday, I guess. And then the other one was to read a book with a wintry cover. And I thought I wanted to pick really short reads that would fit well into the weekend. I wouldn't really have to stress myself out to try to get through them. So I decided to pull down off of my shelves the Sleepover series. And I've had these on my shelves for a couple of years, and I've been reaching for them a couple of times, but then just ended up reading something else. And I'm so glad I pulled these down because they ended up being such a fun time. And I thought, you know, You're Invited to a Creepover was perfect for our scary sleepover weekend. And so I read the first book because I wasn't sure if these needed to be read in consecutive order, but if you're planning on picking these up, no, they don't. So each book has a new story and a new set of characters. So I read the first one, and this one does have blue on the cover. You could see some spooky sort of bluish white hands in the background reaching out for these girls. So this one has to do with Abby Miller and her friends, and she's having a sleepover. And this was just so nostalgic as well for like me growing up and having sleepover parties and doing all the girly things. So I found myself smiling throughout these books. So Abby has a sleepover, like I said, and she starts receiving mysterious text messages after a boy that she likes asks her to the dance that's happening the following week. So Abby is at a sleepover with her friends in her basement, and she starts receiving really threatening texts to stay away from Jake and, you know, or else sort of thing. So she has to figure out what's going on with that mystery. So it, like I said, it was very, very nostalgic, the whole sleepover thing and doing makeovers and doing silly things. And these are just super, super fun reads. So this is by PJ Knight, and I believe there's about 20 books in this series. I'm not sure if she's still writing them or if it's done now, but this was such a cozy, cozy read. So I read the first one. So this is book number 1, and then I read book number 2. This is You Can't Come In Here. So these have really, really great covers. They're super cute, and I would highly recommend these books if you have baby bats at home, so kind of like your preteen into your teenage years. They're just adorable, and I gobbled these up over the weekend. They were so cute. So this is the one that I picked with blue on the cover. The text is kind of in blue, and it's blue on the back. And one thing I forgot to mention is every single book has a creepometer. So number 1 is Sleep Like a Baby. Number 2 is Sleep with the Lights On. Number 3 is Hide Under the Covers. Number 4, which this is a number 4 on the creepometer, so it's quite high, Sleep with the Lights On. And number 5 on the creepometer is Never Sleep Again. So I really like that idea because it kind of gives you an idea of how scary each book is going to be. And I really like the endings of these books. I'm not going to give anything away, but they're just really, really good, spooky, cute stories. So this one has to do with a young girl named Emily Hunter, and she has some really spooky neighbors that live across the street. And as I was reading this one, I was getting kind of the same vibes from the Are You Afraid of the Dark episode, The Tale of the Nightly Neighbors. So this one is very much along the same lines. Really, really cute. And so that's one that I picked that has blue on the cover. And then this one kind of fills both prompts. So this is book number 11. It's all downhill from here. So this is about a young girl, and she takes her best friend along on a family road trip because her parents are contemplating buying a really remote mansion and turning it into a ski lodge. It ends up being haunted. The girls are being chased down the hill by a ghost. And again, this is super cute. This is number 4 on the Creepometer again. So I think this weekend I'm actually gonna read more of these. I'm really into these stories. They're super, super cute. And like I said, if you have that kind of preteen into teenage years, I would highly recommend these. They're really, really cheap. I got these off of Book Outlet for just like $2 or $3, and they're really, really great stories. And then for the movie prompts for this weekend, the first prompt was to watch a horror sequel. So my husband and I, just a little while ago, had started watching the Scream movies from the beginning. And of course, there's a new one coming out this March, Scream 6. So we rewatched Scream 4. I skipped completely over Scream 3. It really doesn't fit in with the rest of them. I think Scream 4 really came back with, you know, a little bit more to the central plot line. So we rewatched Scream 4. That was a lot of fun. I haven't seen it for years and years, and I believe the first time I watched it was only once. So that was really, really fun. And of course, we'll continue on and watch Scream 5 before the new one comes out in March. So that was super fun. And the other movie prompt was watch a werewolf movie. Now, werewolves aren't really my thing, and I plan on watching Teen Wolf, which is the 1985 version with Michael J. Fox. I was totally planning on watching that, but I just wasn't feeling it by the time like Sunday rolled around. So we actually watched, my husband wanted to rewatch Van Helsing. And I guess this does fit the prompt because there's a werewolf in it. So the werewolf is not the main character, but it's still kind of within the story. So I'm cheating a little bit there, but it was really, really fun. And not really my cup of tea. It was more action adventure, more so than horror, but it was totally okay to put on while we were having our Sunday dinner. And so that was a lot of fun. So I'm kind of eking that one in there, cheating a little bit, but I think it still kind of fits. So that's everything that I read for the Scary Sleepover weekend. So make sure you go over and check out Alex's wrap-up vlog. I believe she just posted it today for what she read and watched for her Scary Sleepover weekend. And I know a couple of other booktubers have wrap-ups as well. So make sure you check it out, and check out over on Instagram. You can just use the hashtag Scary Sleepover weekend. And a lot of people really get into it. So that was super, super fun. Sorry guys, I just had to grab some water. I'm sure you could probably hear I'm still a bit congested. So, God, I just got attacked by viruses this fall and winter. So working on trying to get my immunity up, keep my stress levels low, so I could try to get like 100% better. So a couple of other books that I read, kind of, you know, I started during the week and finished them up on the weekend. One of them was book 1 in the Final Friends series by Christopher Pike. I guess this kind of fits in with the Scary Sleepover weekend because this lady has a beautiful blue eye, and the back of the book is a lovely navy blue also. So I was torn with this book. So the first in the series is The Party. And Christopher Pike, like I've said many, many times before, is one of my favorite authors. He was my favorite author when I was growing up, but I had never read this series. And I put this in my Goodreads review as well. So I rated this one 3 stars. I was actually going to rate it lower, but by the time I got to the end of the book, it was starting to pick up. So I found that the book was a little bit slow, not much going on. You know, the characters, there were a couple of the characters that were very dislikable, so I was like, I don't want to read about these people anymore. And there was a lot of ableist language being used. There was a lot of, and something that, you know, I noticed in some of Christopher Pike's books is fat shaming. So that's, you know, a concentration on specifically women's bodies. And that's something that really kind of irks me a little bit, but knowing also that these books came out in like the 80s, 90s, that's something that was quite common then that would come through in writing. But if we put that aside, the story itself was still really, really slow kind of getting going. And I think it's because it's part of a trilogy, so the majority of book 1 was taken up by doing like character development and backstory and all of this stuff. So we don't get to the actual party, which is called the party. We don't get to the actual party until the last few chapters. And then the story starts to pick up. It becomes very much like a murder type mystery and going through everyone's alibis and all of that sort of thing. So it kind of crossed into the horror, true crime sort of crossover genre, I guess you would say. And so that's why I put my rating at 3 stars, because I did really like the ending of that book. But I gotta say, there were a couple of times that I was going to DNF it. And I was like, I don't want to read this series anymore. And even though Pike is my favorite author, I was struggling with it. But I still would recommend it to this point to try it out, see if you like it, and I'm gonna go on to the second book in this probably before the end of the month, and I'll get back to you guys with if I finish this big chunker of a bind up. So for right now, still on the fence about this one. The other book that I read, and this very much will fit into the blue cover prompt from the Scary Sleepover weekend, was Frozen Charlotte by Alex Bell. And this is actually a reread for me. Frozen Charlotte is a book I read in 2020, and it was on my top books of 2020 list. It's on my top books of all time list. I love this duology. So the first book is Frozen Charlotte, and then there is a prequel that's called Charlotte Says, which I'm actually rereading right now. So this is a 5-star book, and I also read it as part of Amy McCaw's YA book club. So there were some discussions that she was having over on Goodreads and some on Instagram as well. So I've never taken part in a book club before, so I thought that would be kind of fun. And like I said, it was a reread, but I was wanting to reread it anyway. So when she put it on as part of her book club, I thought it was perfect. Has a blue cover, also perfect. So I mean, my thoughts about this book haven't changed whatsoever. I love this book, so good. I would highly recommend picking it up if you enjoy sort of, I guess you would call this a YA, because the characters are around 17 or so, but it's very gruesome in places. It's quite scary and spooky, and creepy dolls, creepy kids. Like the youngest girl in this sibling group is super creepy. So you've got creepy kids and creepy dolls all in this little book, and so I would highly recommend it. So just before the holidays, I actually picked up the entire Red Eye series. So this book is part of the Red Eye series, and I had been looking for it for quite some time. I had to order it from the UK, but I did get all of the books in this particular series. So I think it's books 1 to 10. So I'll just quickly show you the other ones in this series as well. So like I said, we have Charlotte Says, which is the sequel to Frozen Charlotte, and then we have Sleepless, and I love the colors that they have in all of these covers. They're really great. Whiteout. So I haven't read any of these other ones. I know Amy McCaw has read quite a few of these, I believe all of them. And there's a new one that has just come out or will be coming out soon by Alex Bell, who is the author of Frozen Charlotte. So I wanted to read these before I continued on with the series. So we have Dark Room, and then The Haunting, which is also by Alex Bell. So she's written quite a few in this Red Eye series. Savage Island, and then Bad Bones, and we have 2 more. There's Fur and Flesh and Blood. So most of you guys probably know from my last video that I'm on a book buying ban this year. I have been holding strong. It's been like 3 weeks, which I know is ridiculous, but I don't think I've ever gone 3 weeks without buying a book. So holding strong. I have tons on my shelves that I can read and tons that I'm excited about. So really super excited about this Red Eye series. So I wanted to share that quickly with you guys. And then the last book that I finished this week, I had a really good reading week. I really enjoyed those Creepover books. The Christopher Pike was kind of, like I said, it was on the fence, but I ended up enjoying it in the end for the last couple of chapters, and I'm hoping that carries on into the second book. Frozen Charlotte is one of my favorite books of all time. I just reread it for the second time. And then I listened on audiobook. I've gotten really into coloring in the past few months. So I would sit down and color, and I would listen to The Witch of Blackbird Pond. And this is a book that I've been meaning to pick up for literally years and just haven't gotten around to it. And I'm kicking myself because it was such a fantastic read. I gave it 5 stars. So this one is about a young woman named Kit who lives in Barbados, and this takes place in the 17th century, and she gets shipped after her father dies from Barbados to go live with family in a Puritan community in the United States. And they're a very strict Puritan community, and through everything she ends up befriending a woman who is a Quaker woman who ends up being accused of witchcraft, and Kit herself finds herself wound into all of this, and she is also accused of witchcraft after several of the children in the community start to fall ill. So it's a fantastic book. I love fiction that is not only written really well, which this is beautifully written, it also has a lot of history wound in there, and of course I'm very much into witchcraft and the witch trials and all of that sort of thing. And reading that book sort of kickstarted this whole trend of reading witchy books. So I've got a couple on the go now that I will wrap up at the end of the month, but this book was so unbelievably fantastic. Like I said, I gave it a full 5 stars. It's a favorite of all time. I enjoyed it from cover to cover. I couldn't put it down. And I would highly suggest, if you're into that sort of thing and you like that sort of historical element in your fiction, but also if you're just looking for a great fiction book that's well written, you know, I would highly suggest it to anyone. And you know, obviously it's won a bunch of awards and stuff like that. So really, really enjoyed that. And I had such fun with my reading week as a whole and doing the Scary Sleepover weekend. And right now is Friday night right now, so I'm actually going to jump right back into another one of those Creepover books. I believe I have like 8 or 10 of them on my shelves, and they're creepy, cozy mysteries and end up having great endings from what I've experienced with them. So that's everything that I read over the past week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please make sure to give me a thumbs up. Leave me a question or a comment down below because you know I love chatting with you guys. But until next time, stay spooky, everybody. Bye.